Charlotte's very tip-top, flip-flopped, upside-down day. This is the story of the day that everything got tip-topped, flip-flopped, turned upside down. It is Charlotte's story about a regular day in her regular house with her regular big brother that ended up in a very irregular way. This is Charlotte. Everyone calls her Charlotte, except for her big brother. He calls her Charlie, because he always wanted a brother instead of a sister. Charlotte is very sorry that she ended up to be a sister, but she doesn't care for being called Charlie, and she especially dislikes having her hair tousled, which is what her big brother does every time he calls her Charlie. It makes Charlotte irritable. She thinks tousling someone's hair should be illegal. The other thing about Charlotte's big brother is that he is smart. Very, very smart. He is so smart that everyone is always exclaiming, "Charlotte, your big brother is so smart!" But this doesn't bother Charlotte like the hair tousling does. In fact, Charlotte looks up to her big brother. Naturally, she looks up to him because, well, he's taller than she is. A lot taller. But she also looks up to him because he knows so many things. About so many things. He knows about airplanes and orangutans and the reptile age. And Charlotte's brother likes to teach her about things. All the time. All the time. In fact, it seems as though he likes to teach her things even more than he likes to tousle her hair. He taught her what to do when crossing the street. He said, "Charlie, always, forever, and every time when crossing the street, you must look both ways." He taught her about stranger danger. He said, "Charlie, by no means, not once, and never, ever should you talk to strangers." He taught her about the dangers of electricity. He said, "Charlie, if you go out to fly your kite, you must avoid, keep away from, and always steer clear of power lines." Well, one day, it seemed like everything got tip-topped, flip-flopped, turned upside down. It seemed like Charlotte was big and so smart. It seemed like Charlotte should tousle her big brother's hair. It all started in the afternoon when her brother was in the kitchen. All of a sudden, Charlotte heard a sort of a pop. And then her brother was heard exclaiming, "Oh, calamity! Call 911! Oh, disaster! Call 911! Oh, horror! Call 911!" And then, very quickly, as if it was all one word, her brother bellowed, "The macaroni and cheese exploded in the microwave and made an electrical short because some of the cheese-flavored sauce dribbled out onto a cord that must have been chewed and frayed by Cousin Marky's hamster that escaped the weekend they stayed with us at Thanksgiving last November." Now, Charlotte was very quick and hurried to the telephone because her big brother was so smart. And when he was teaching her about the dangers of electricity, he had said, "Charlie, on no account, by no means, never, ever should liquid and electricity touch each other." Charlotte knew that this meant that no liquid, not water, nor milk, nor sweet strawberry swirl sodas, nor even macaroni and cheese flavored sauce should ever mix with electricity. Charlotte remembered all of that as she picked up the telephone. But then she remembered something else, and she looked calmly around the kitchen, and she saw that nothing was wrong. There had been a sort of a pop, but now everything was okay and back to normal. Fortunately, nothing had started on fire, and nothing was in danger. Well, except for her brother. He was in danger of tearing his hair out or falling on the floor and kicking and screaming. Or at least he was in danger of getting a headache because he was running around and around in circles in the kitchen with his eyes bulging out of his head and his face as red as a clown's nose, exclaiming, "Oh, mishap! Call 911! Oh, tragedy! Call 911! Oh, catastrophe! Call 911! Even Charlotte's fat cat Lou had jumped up on the refrigerator to get out of the way of her running brother with his bulging eyes and red face and hair pulling and exclamations. Lou started to lick his paws. Charlotte, in a very, very calm way, put the telephone back on its holder. Her brother stopped in his tracks and looked at her as if she was a blameworthy hamster. Lou, the fat cat, jumped off of the refrigerator and walked out of the kitchen. Charlotte's brother took a great big breath, and his eyes were still bulging, and his face was still red as a clown's nose, and he hollered, "Charlie, whenever there is a problem, you must always, without fail and every single time, dial 911. And with that, Charlotte's brother picked up their mom's cellular phone from the counter and started crazily punching in the numbers. 911. Charlotte calmly looked back at her brother and said, "That's not exactly true." But her brother was frantically listening to the cellular phone and not really paying any attention to Charlotte. Then he started hollering into the phone, "Hello, good afternoon, and hey!" But Charlotte was still calm, and she calmly and with composure said firmly to her brother, "It won't work." Still not listening to her, Charlotte's brother began to wail, "They're not home! They're out to lunch! And they're closed! Oh, disaster! Oh, havoc! Oh, woe!" Charlotte again spoke to her brother in a very calm voice. She told him that the people who answer 911 calls are always there to answer the phone at night and in the morning and on Tuesdays and even on New Year's Eve at midnight. She told him that they would always, every time and without fail, answer a call for help, but that they wouldn't get his call at all. "What?" her big brother said, his bulging eyes looking around at her with his red, clown-nosed colored face turning pink and then becoming somewhat pale. He was definitely listening to her. "They won't answer my phone call?" he asked. Charlotte calmly answered, "No, they won't even get your phone call. That's why they're not answering," she explained. "They don't even know you're calling." And with that, Charlotte began to hum. Charlotte's brother began to get agitated again. His eyes got a little bulgier, and his pale face turned pink and then clown-nosed red again. "Charlie!" he roared. "Now is not the time to hum or to chirp or to sing." But that is exactly what Charlotte did. She started to sing. "When it's an emergency, dial 911. But on a cell phone, you're not done. There's one more thing that you always have to do. You have to push the green button too." The green button on her mom's phone had the word "send" on it, but some cell phones have the word "start," or they just have a green symbol on them. Charlotte explained it all to her brother. Her brother looked astonished. Clearly, this was something he didn't know. Charlotte had taught her brother that in order to place a 911 call on a cellular phone, he would push the buttons and then the green button too. Charlotte had never felt like this before, and she began to sing the song again. "When it's an emergency, dial 911. But on a cell phone, you're not done. There's one more thing that you always have to do. You have to push the green button too." Charlotte's brother was awestruck and still quite red and bulgy-eyed. He was very upset again, and he bellowed, "Charlie, push it! Right now, this instant, and immediately!" But instead, Charlotte put down the cellular phone and led her brother into the living room. She pointed at her coloring book and said, "I'd like you to meet my friend, Special Agent 911. Charlotte taught her brother all about Special Agent 911, who had taught her all about dialing 911 on a cellular phone. Charlotte explained that Special Agent 911 had visited her classroom to teach the children the proper way to dial 911 on a cell phone by pushing the green button too. She told her brother how each of the children got a chance to try it out on Special Agent 911 himself, and each of them got a certificate for learning how. She told him that Special Agent 911 had taught her whole class, including the teacher, the song she had just sung. When it's an emergency, dial 911, but on a cell phone you're not done. There's one more thing that you always have to do. You have to push the green button too. Charlotte also taught her brother that there were very important rules about when to dial 911 and push the green button for help and when not to. She showed him some examples that were in the coloring book the Special Agent 911 gave her. She explained that many things were upsetting, but that not all of them were an emergency. For example, she said, if our fat cat Lou somehow managed to climb up in a tree and got stuck, that would not be an emergency, so we would not call 911. But, she said, if our house really did catch fire, that would be an emergency, and so we would dial 911 and push the green button, her brother answered, and Charlotte smiled a very big smile at him. Charlotte's brother was listening to her, and he was learning about the important rules for calling 911 on a cellular phone. But there was still something he wanted her to teach him. It was indeed a very tip-top, flip-flopped, upside-down day. "Charlie," he said, "how did you know that our cheese-flavored sauce situation wasn't an emergency?" Charlotte smiled another big smile, and she told her brother that Special Agent 911 had taught her that the first thing to do in an upsetting situation is to stay very calm. Charlotte's brother's face turned clown nose red again, and Charlotte knew that they were both remembering how he had run around and around the kitchen with his eyes bulging and pulling his hair and hollering. "I kept the things that Special Agent 911 taught me in my head," Charlotte explained, "so that I knew to stay calm. And when I was calm, I could remember when to dial 911 and when not to. I kept the song that we learned in my head, so that when you pushed 911 and not the green button, I knew that the call would not work." Charlotte's brother began to sing. "When it's an emergency, dial 911, but on a cell phone you're not done. There's one more thing that you always have to do. You have to push the green button too." Charlotte's brother was calm. He was interested in what she taught him, and he listened to her. And then another tip-top, flip-flopped, upside-down thing happened. While her brother still tousled her hair as he looked down at her, she knew that he looked up to her too. Because as he tousled her hair, he said, "You are very wise, quite intelligent, and so smart, Charlotte."